Hi, this is Bob Papa, voice of the New York Football Giants, and this is the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. Proudly, as always, in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. Tonight we are 67% British, 33% Irish, but as always, 100% Giants. Shane is busy watching the Three Lions tonight, and I mean, I am as well, but, you know, there's more important things going on. And no, I'm joking, Shane. Hope you're enjoying watching the game. But Kev's back to join myself and producer Craig as we pick up where we left off before our extended break, continuing our roster breakdowns this week, focusing on tight ends and centres. Ooh, exciting times. Plus, as usual, we'll be bringing you the latest Giant news on what is a sweltering evening here in the UK. So apologies if you see a few sweat drops coming down the brow. You know, it's a rather warm one this evening. Apologies if you hear a fan going. It's very, very warm. Kev, welcome back, mate. How are you both doing?
Yeah, good. I'm really glad to be back on. God, obviously, Shane can't be on. I was gutted to miss last week. I listened back, though. It was a great podcast. So, yeah, looking forward to kicking into some of these news items, a bit of state of play, and talking more Giants.
Yeah, we completely appreciate anybody who decides to listen to this over the England game tonight. So, you know, thank you if you are. If you're not, we do understand. And obviously, if you're watching this back on demand, then we appreciate you still watching it. So there we go. I'm sure that some of our continental UK who are not England fans, maybe from the fair isles of yourself, Kev, or Wales or Scotland, might be tuning in because they'll probably prefer this to that, as Neil and Kieran probably are. So yeah, it's good to be back. As I said at the end of last week's pod, this is my last one for a few weeks. God knows how long, depending on the shoulder surgery. But looking forward to getting into Kev, your favourite position this week as well. Bit of tight end.
Yeah, bit of tight end. Yeah, I love a bit of tight end. I mean, like, I just love the position because I think it's like they need to know so much. You know, we've talked about it in the past as well. You know, they need to know all the blocking techniques to go alongside the offensive line. They need to know all the right trees to run from the wide position attached or detached in the slot position. I just think it's one of the more nuanced positions that's not given enough credit, to be honest.
Yeah, man. It's I do like a tight end as well, to be fair. So I'm looking forward to getting into it. It's a pretty slim looking depth chart, but we'll get more into that shortly. As usual, get your thoughts and questions and comments in. Drop them in the comments. You know, we love the interaction as usual with those watching live. And don't forget to check out all of our socials as well. Follow the links in the description, and feel free to give this video a big thumbs up if you're watching. I like that, Darren. Thanks very much. Got both on. I mean, we're more important, surely, because let's face it, England aren't looking great, are they? But as usual, we're going to start off with the latest news, and I'm sure most UK Giants fans were aware that Munich game tickets went on sale this morning. I mean, we can do comms for you, Steve, if you want. I'm sure people would quickly turn off because, let's face it, we're here to talk about Giants, not this football. But anyway, yeah, Munich tickets went on sale this morning. We were very lucky to get our hands on some. But we know there's plenty out there that didn't manage to get through in time. But it won't be the last opportunity to get those all-important tickets. Keep your eyes on our socials for more information as and when we get it. Kieran, looking forward to seeing you there, buddy. We're all three of us have got tickets as well, so it's going to be a great weekend in Munich in November. Like I said, if you didn't manage to get your hands on tickets, fear not. There are plenty more ways you can still get your hands on some. So keep your eyes on our socials. And yeah, if we got any information, we'll drop it to you as and when we get it. But Kev, was there any surprise in the best play in Giant history announcement that came last week?
Well, it was at the Giants 100, wasn't it, this past week? A Night with Legends event. The team was revealed. The winner was a fan vote of the greatest play in Giants history. And the winner by apparently a long way was David Tyree's helmet catch from Super Bowl 42 in 2008, which has been a favourite from the start, to be honest. At the event, Eli Manning broke down the play in the only way that Eli can, saying that, it worked out just like Coach Coughlin drew it up. No one blocking me. Eli, being the great athlete that you are, run around, break a couple of tackles, and then throw it to Tyree's helmet in the middle of the field, surrounded by 3 or 4 defensive players. And it worked. The helmet catch beat the other 3 finalists, which were Victor Cruz's it was the other 3 finalists, which were Victor Cruz's 99-yard touchdown against the Jets in 2011, Manning to Manningham's down the sideline catch from Super Bowl 46, and Odell Beckham's the catch against the Cowboys in 2014. Now, out of the other 3 finalists, which one do you think was the most legitimate to threaten the helmet catch? I'll start with you, Craig.
So tough, isn't it? Like those 3 are all phenomenal. I'm really, really surprised that the Manning to Manningham throw and catch wasn't closer, because as crazy as the play is for the helmet catch, I think the touch on the ball from Eli to Manningham is just outrageous. And there's like no other place he could put it. And Manningham secures the catch. And I don't know. I just feel like maybe that one was overlooked a little bit. And it's weird because you're also talking about Odell's catch, which was at the time, that was my first season supporting the Giants. And I'd never seen anything like that. The Cruz one's a bit before my time, but I've seen it back, and I think the Cruz one's there because it's 99 yards, isn't it? Like, yeah. It's just the fact that he was able to break those few tackles and it's 99 yards. But yeah, that Manning to Manningham one, I think, is horrifically underrated, even though it's still got through to the finalists.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Dan? Do you have a specific favourite out of these 3? Any shocks for you?
I mean, let's face it. All 4 of those plays got through to the final for a reason. They're all 4 massive plays. In recent Giants history, I think any one of the 4 of them could have won. But obviously, the helmet catch is the helmet catch. It was, like I said, smell something there, Eli. You weren't quite telling the truth there, were you? But I think that catch in itself was unbelievable. And I'm not surprised in the slightest that it did win. But the Cruz 99-yarder, it was, it's a crucial time in that season. Winning that game cemented our place in the postseason to go on and make that run to Super Bowl 46. So that was a huge play there. The Manningham catch down the sideline, it was so on point. It was almost like the odds of making that play and making that catch must have been so slim. To get both feet down, keep possession of the ball all the way through the catch in double coverage as well is unbelievably impressive for a receiver who was underrated in Mario Manningham, I believe. It was a great catch. And what more can we say about the catch by Odell that hasn't been said already? It's a phenomenal play. Only he's making that catch. I thought that would be the one that would push the helmet catch close, but like I said, I'm not really surprised that the helmet catch won by a landslide, really. What did you think, Kev?
Yeah, same. I mean, all sort of could be worthy winners in their own right. I mean, like Craig said, that Manningham catch, the pass that was just so pinpointed. It had to be there. It couldn't be anywhere else. And it was such a crucial time in the game. I mean, I'm kind of glad the Odell one didn't get it because I felt that might have been a little bit of recency bias, although it was a phenomenal catch. And, it's sort of in the modern era of social media and stuff like that, it was even more amplified, and it was even bigger than what it was, if that's even a thing, because it was such a phenomenal catch. But for all these things to happen, in my years of fandom, is quite cool as well. Because obviously that Super Bowl run was the first year I started supporting them. So to see all those things actually, in my life of my fandom is quite cool. But I think the one that won was the genuine winner. I think, Eli's wriggling out of all that pressure and being able to just put it up there.
There's pressure and there's that, yeah.
I know, but yeah, I mean, all fantastic plays, and it just looked like a really fun night as well. The whole night, the Giants said that Bob Papa, I think, said that they will release footage of it soon. I know it was a long evening, 3.5 hours long. So I'm interested to sort of like see some of the footage when it comes out, because the reports I've heard from fans and players and stuff, that it was a fantastic and a really enjoyable night.
Is it safe to say that if the helmet catch was now played in current NFL rules, that Eli would have been called for a sack?
Well, that's interesting.
They call them quick now. They call them bloody quick now.
Well, they're trying to protect the quarterbacks, aren't they? Like, so they do call it quick. You're right.
Yeah,
just
they do blow their play
little tidbit.
Quick, I mean,
little tidbit.
Yeah, it's a great question. We'd have to ask the NFL referees.
Let's get one on.
Maybe that's a question. Yeah,
let's not.
Maybe that's a question for them. No, let's not. Craig, something that we're all looking forward to. What were you going to say?
I was going to say it would go down as well as me meeting Kevin Friend at a Reading hospitality event where we grilled him for 30 minutes, and I'm sure he really enjoyed his hospitality experience.
I'm sure we did. Not.
Hard Knocks. We might as well talk Hard Knocks, and we've been treated to a little bit of something today as well. So, at the same event that Kev mentioned, a preview for the new off-season Hard Knocks with the Giants was aired, and it was the first footage, mainly featuring new defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. And this is what we kind of learned, and shout out to Talking Giants for posting the video so we were all able to see that. Bowen confirmed that the base alignment of the defense will remain a 3-4-4, a formation that will be familiar to the players who were under Wink Martindale last season. It's fair to say, though, that it looks like the Giants might not be as one-dimensional as they were in the last season, as Bowen kind of said that it would be other looks. You know, you'd see other looks as well. So I don't think we're kind of set and locked into the 3-4-4, much like we were under Wink. He also said that the two smartest positions have to be our inside backers, and that's where the bulk of the load is going to be put. So it sounds like Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden, or whoever plays next to Bobby. Obviously, that's still not, I would say, 100% sewn up. Will probably be relied on heavily. So Bobby Okereke back-to-back every single snap season's incoming there. Kev, this will be one for you. Isaiah Simmons was mentioned heavily in the footage, with Bowen hinting at a significant role this coming season. In our minds, he will be a first and second down nickel, and then playing the money on third down, which I could only imagine means that opposing quarterbacks should be thinking about where he's going to be lined up. Elite pass rush is Bowen's method of attack, and this was clear even before the acquisition of Brian Burns, with footage showing Bowen saying, I want guys that attack. We're going to be structured by having elite pass rushers up front. 4 guys we can line up, put their damn hand down and go win, which is music to our ears, I think. He also then mentioned Basham or Ryder Anderson could potentially be added to the sort of Thibodeau Burns Dex conversation, which would be definitely interesting for Ryder Anderson. But did also suggest that the Giants could seek another interior pass rusher to take the pressure off of Dex. The final point on this was after the footage where Joe Shane revealed that the NFL Films have granted the Giants final authority on final edits due to competitive reasons. Now, the original thought on that was, is this going to rob us of the Wink fallout or the Barkley stuff and other key talking points? However, with today's trailer, that doesn't seem like it will. Before I get into the trailer, just quickly, Kev, thoughts on the Isaiah Simmons comments from Shane Bowen?
Love it. Absolutely love it. I think I mentioned it a few months back, that a few episodes back, that, you know, Simmons coming back, he could play that sort of like overhang star linebacker, money linebacker sometimes is called. That's sort of like just basically athlete, the bigger sort of safety stroke linebacker hybrid. So I'm like, and that's why you bring him back, because obviously you have an idea of how you want to play him. You know, this type of defense, unlike Winks, you know, Winks sort of blitz linebackers, blitz DBs. This is very much heavily on the 4 down pass rushers up front when we're in nickel. So you won't necessarily see as many blitzes, but you might see more stunts of the front line, you know, guys coming inside, you know, swapping positions. It'd be really, really interesting to see. I mean, there will be blitzing as well. But to have Simmons has a rare athleticism and size to be able to be a linebacker on rundowns and a sort of hybrid safety on passing plays. So I'm so glad that, because a lot of people thought, right, what do you do with Simmons? You bring him back. The only way you can bring him back is if you have a real idea of how you're going to play him. And the fact is that Shane name checked him and said he actually knows he has a plan for him. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. Like, and obviously Simmons has come back in a 1-year deal. It's very much a prove it deal. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays and how he's utilized.
So if we go back to the trailer then, and there was a hell of a lot that happened in that trailer. It's 1 minute 8 seconds, and somehow
that is 68 seconds of pure joy.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Cannot
I mean,
wait.
we've all been talking about Giants life and how much we've missed it, and that little snippet was just enough, wasn't it? So yeah, draft, free agency, Daniel Jones recovery, a couple other things being highlighted. 3 massive talking points, in my opinion. And I think I've watched it about 8 times, so I think I've got them all down here. So first of all, Joe Shane said we should stay and pick right. This is Atlanta. Now, obviously, Atlanta were trying to trade up to the Giants' number 6 pick. Will we find out how much they're offering and for who? The second was Brian Burns. Joe Shane told Damon Bowen at the Combine, it looked like, that Brian Burns could cost us 2 2s, and then you have to pay him 28/29 million. Well, it cost us 1 2 and 2 5th-rounders in exchange for a 5th-rounder and Burns. So I think the fact that they were touting 2 2s and we were able to get him for a 2 and a 5th and a swap of 5ths is phenomenal. And then he got paid an average of 28.2 million if he earns the whole 141 million that the contract's worth. So I think Joe Shane is bang on the money there with what he thought he would accept, which is incredible. And then finally, it's like he knows what he's doing. Finally, and this is probably the one that whet the appetite, and there was an audible gasp from me when I heard this little quote. But towards the end of the 1 minute 8 second trailer, you heard Joe Shane on the phone saying, Saquon, can you give me your word on that, or are you not going to give us a chance? Now, that last point is huge, and this could contradict what Saquon said that the Giants never gave him an offer. Does this potentially tarnish the legacy even further? And are we only going to get one side of the story? Because obviously this is Giants Hard Knocks and not Giants as Saquon Hard Knocks. Dan?
I mean, we all know what I think of the old number 26. I think, yes, it could potentially tarnish his legacy. It's the fact that that's in the trailer is a bold move to put that in the trailer. There's probably going to be more context to it. There's probably going to be more information, but that line, it makes you go, oh, what happened? What was the rest of the conversation? You want to know, but reading it, listening to it how it is in that one line, it could absolutely destroy his legacy with the Giants if there was an offer on the table and what he turns out to have said is absolute horseshit. So it could be a massive thing, but again, like, it is the Giants Hard Knocks, so there is going to be it is going to. I mean, it would be great if they got in him for a sort of interview as well, just to sort of like say we've got it from both sides, but that's not going to happen. So it's all going to be from our side. You might get a little comment on the phone from him while he's talking to Shane, but yeah, it's going to be a tough one. But roll on July the 2nd, because I am thoroughly looking forward to it.
Kev, thoughts on the Saquon quote at the end?
I mean, it just adds a bit of fuel to that fire, especially for when we played the Eagles this season. I mean, so one thing to take note, though, is like they can't lie. They can't make stuff up. They can brand it and they can kind of like show it from sort of like one perspective as such, but they can't really, make things up or like, because it will come out. Saquon will come out. But I mean, it's interesting. I'll have to go back and sort of listen to some of Saquon's quotes, because we were under the impression, or I'm under the impression that like, right, no offer was made. The Giants never came back to him with something apart from the season before that he turned down, and then he's played on the tag And then we were under the understanding that was it. That was all the contact. But this kind of like throws a spanner in the works and makes you think, whoa, hold on a minute. So there was contact. So who was fibbing and who wasn't? And we'll definitely see something. I don't think we'll see much more than what was said. Maybe we'll get that snippet again, and then we'll know of the outcome, or Sheehan talking to Dable about the outcome. I don't think we'll necessarily get Saquon's side of the conversation on record or on tape. But it definitely, like you said, whets the appetite for this July 2nd next week. I mean, everyone's going to be tuning in. I just hope it's on DAZN or something, like, because it's on HBO Max. I don't know what if we get that. I'm sure, so on Sky, is it on Sky Sports? Do they have the old Hard Knocks? Like,
I don't know. So Holty asked the question, do we know when and where it's being aired in the UK? And that's a really good question. Someone actually asked us on X, and I replied to them saying I don't know. And I've tagged DAZN on NFL. I've tagged them in it. So I would assume it would go on there.
Yeah, obviously Hard Knocks from last year, both the preseason with the Jets and during the season with the Dolphins, were both on DAZN, and I mean they were both like as and when like they were shown on US TV. I think maybe the day after or something. But it was all on there, so I can't see it not being on there really.
We'll probably get it the morning of the third or something. But just back to the point though, like, I mean, there's no way the Giants are going to show footage that shows them in a bad light. So no. So so there will be that element, like Dan was saying. Will be sort of Giants sided. But like, and Craig, you made the perfect point. Every last few years, especially when the new War Room came in, those clips of Giants life and stuff like that, we were on the edge of our seats. Like every time one dropped, we were like watching it, analyzing it, back in the chat, back and forward about, did you see this? Did you see this? What do you think of this? Like, it, gave us, and you said it as well. Why can't they make it longer? Why is it only 15 minutes or 12 minutes or something like that? And now we've got, we're guessing 5 hourly shows of proper footage, behind the scenes footage. The Brian Burns ones, I'm really looking forward to see. So I'm sort of interested to see how trades in the off season take place, because you never really see footage of that. You hear about people in talks and stuff, but I'm hoping they will be like conversations of like, okay, we want Brian Burns, and that sort of negotiation back and forward. Again, we probably can't show too much, but just I'm interested to see, because we've seen Hard Knocks for so many years of preseason football camp and stuff like that. And for us lads who talk about draft, who talk about free agency, who talk about Giants football all year round, we don't switch off. When the season's over, like, we produce content, we're heavily invested, and we care about the team. Like, I'm not saying other fans don't, but we're invested in the off season. So this for us is like fantastic. This is like see it peeking behind that curtain. So it will be it's going to be a great watch. I mean, and Saquon, because I don't think he'll come out of this looking too clever, So we will see.
So obviously, when we all saw the trailer earlier today, the first thing you said in the group chat, Kev, was I want to know what the Atlanta offer is, and we should have taken it. We should have taken it. Like, what was the offer? What do you reckon your guess is to move from 8 to 6? Like, what would you ask for?
So it's interesting. So from 8 to 6, right? First of all, who are they going to take? The rumors was Neighbours. Now, if you are 100% set on Neighbours, then you don't move out of it unless it's a God offer. But if they're coming up, if they want to secure Penix there, or even for me personally, if they come up to take Neighbours, knowing that the chances of getting a Dunze at 8 is highly likely, then I would make it. What would it take? I mean, a second round pick.
It's 2 spots, isn't it?
2 spots with a second round pick. So it's a hard one, like a second round pick this year or next year, because obviously we'd like to build a bit of a war chest for next year if we need to do something in that draft. But it will be interesting to see how much details they show on the show of what the Atlanta pick was offered and why they turned it down or something like that. I mean, for me to move the 2 spots, it would have to be a second. I think anything 3rd, 4th, something like that at that point. I think a second, because you're helping to build the roster then. You know yourself, when you get to 3rd, 4th, and 5th, a little bit more of a crapshoot.
Dan?
Yeah, it would have had to been something like that. A second this year or second next year. I mean, if they wanted to offer their first next year, I wouldn't turn that down either. But that wasn't going to happen. Whether it's second this year and I don't know, a third next year or something like that. I don't know, just to sweeten the deal a bit. But it would have definitely had to have been worth it for the Giants, really.
I mean, worst case scenario, like you have to think about this. Well, the worst case scenarios, Falcons move up and take Neighbors at 6, right? And you think to yourself, okay, Dunsey, but the Titans are picking there. Titans could have done with wide receiver help as well. So it would have been interesting to see. I mean, they didn't go Dunsey in the end, but you have to think to yourself, do you risk that?
The other thing I saw on Twitter was something along the lines of, well, maybe the Falcons wanted to make sure they got Penix, which would have been even funnier if they would have traded up and taken Penix. I dread to think of the memes that we would have made on that live draft night between me and Shane if that would have happened. But also, a lot of people were saying, well, if that's the case, were the Giants scared that someone would trade with the Titans to take Neighbors, and they were all in on Neighbors? And it happened, 3-4 seasons ago with Devonta Smith?
Yeah,
like once burnt, twice shy sort of thing. So I get it. I do get it.
That's it. And like, say for example, if we traded the 8 and Neighbors and Odunze went, where do we go there with that pick?
Penix?
Yeah.
Hello, like
it's a great question. I'm sure Joe Shane and the front office would have had a plan if that happened, but I'm kind of glad it didn't. So didn't have to deal with the aftermath of trading back. Yeah, because there would have been an aftermath.
It's Giants Twitter, of course, there would have been.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I'm thoroughly looking forward to July the 2nd. You said about adding fuel to the fire, Kev. I mean, it's just throwing petrol on the bonfire and just like, come on. It's going to be an exciting watch. Last up there, we had obviously the Night with the Legends 1 hour special. The Night with the Legends. It's been announced that they're going to be. It's going to be released as a 1 hour special on the MSG network, Giants.com, Giants TV, the official Giants app, and the Giants YouTube channel on Thursday the 27th. So 2 days away. There's been no information regarding what will and won't be shown. But there was plenty that we didn't cover in depth tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to hear some of the stories from Tom Coughlin, Bill Parcells, LT, Eli, Stray, Cruz, and the plethora of ex-players and coaches that were there on the night. Lots to look forward to on Thursday to watch that. So I know I'm looking forward to watching it on YouTube. I don't know about you guys, but it's going to be a good little hour's watch there.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be good. If I can't sleep that night from surgery pain, I know what I'll be doing. Let's put it that way.
Very true.
High as a kite watching that.
Yeah. You and LT.
Yeah. Just quickly, did you hear what LT said to Tibbs? It's like one of the greatest things ever. He said to Tibbs, "How many sacks did you have last season?" And Tibbs went 11.5, and LT's replies was, "Do you only play 3 games?" Absolutely scandalous.
Oh, mate, that is like maybe that light a fire underneath Thibodeau's arse, like
Maybe. But what a comment that was.
Oh,
it's a bold, very bold comment.
He can back that up though. When you have the career he did,
exactly.
you can back that up.
Yeah.
Mate, when you're Lawrence Taylor, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
All right. That was the latest news. It's now time to move on and talk about, like Kev said, his favourite position, tight ends. And you may notice there's one name that's now missing off the list. As it's your favourite position, Kev, it would be rude not to start with you. So Darren Waller's up first, yeah?
Darren Waller, eh? What do we think about the Darren Waller situation? Are we happy? Are we just glad that it's been resolved, or would you have liked him to stay on, or just buy? Yeah. Because you know as well, like you get the feeling like he's so injury prone, right? Even if he had come back, you get the feeling any small knock he would have just elongated it. Do you know what I mean? He would have just been like, well, I've got a bit of an issue. I don't want to go out. Do you know what I mean? It just it kind of felt like that to me. So yeah, just I'm kind of pleased.
Yeah, I mean, I know
moved on now. We can move on.
We spoke about it last week, didn't we, Craig? But I mean, what? I mean, before we do get on, just a 30-second take. But what's your take on it, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I was. So let's start. Just very quickly start at the beginning, right? So anyone says a bad trade is just wrong. Basically, it hasn't worked out, but at the time it was a phenomenal trade. You know, he turned Kadarius Toney into Darren Waller. Now, Joe Sheehan and Brian Dable weren't to know. You know, a year later, injuries sort of ruined the season, and him falling out of love with football. You can't predict that. Jimmy, you can't predict that. So, in hindsight, the trade was still good and good value. It didn't work out. These things happened. You know, it didn't work out. But you know, I've been a big Daniel Bellinger fan anyway, and we loved the Theo Johnson pick. So part of me kind of thinks, okay, thank you, Darren Waller, for coming in last season. You know, you're off the books now. Not too much dead cap. Clears up a bit of space. Let's get back to you know, Daniel Bellinger's progression and career and building him up to be a solid number one in the league. And we've got this real sort of raw potential Theo Johnson, who I actually believe in a couple of years' time could be a very good starting tight end in this league. Whereas I think Daniel Bellinger will be a good tight end in the league. I think Theo Johnson's got the potential to be like really good. I don't want to say elite, but I mean like people who a type of player people pick in fantasy. That type of tight end. And people who play fantasy, you kind of know what I mean. Like I kind of like, you know, top tier. So so I want I'm actually quite pleased to sort of see their development, and I'm always about investing in the young good talent.
So all in all, happy to see the back of Darren Waller. Yeah.
Let's just move on, man.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Daniel Bellinger then. Over to you, Kev.
Yeah, Daniel Bellinger. Man, I just spoke to him. You know, last year, you know, the rival Darren Waller drastically changed Bellinger's 2023 as he went from being like the lead tight end in 2022 to the backup in 23. Despite appearing in every game, he still had 10 fewer targets than he did in 12 games the previous season. The biggest negative, though, with Bellinger's season was the step backwards he took in the blocking department. You know, he allowed 10 pressures compared to 2 the year before. You know, whether this was due to lack of passing snaps, meaning more blocking for him, or was it down to technique or down to coaching? You know, if it was down to coaching, you know, that hopefully that'll be cleared up this season. I think, speaking about the blocking, I talked about it before, seeing Brasillo come in and actually work with running backs and tight ends on blocking, I think is phenomenal. You know, it's just an offensive line coach. It's about protecting the quarterback in passing and blocking and running. And for him to work with tight ends and running backs, I think, you know, that should sort of help that department out exponentially. But his last year's stats, he was receiving yards only 256. He had no touchdowns. His yards per reception was 10.2. Yards after the catch, 139. His longest catch is 26. And he had 1 drop. You know, that was definitely a downgrade from the season before. But expectations for this season, what will we see now? With Waller gone, Bellinger has the chance to re-establish himself as the number 1 all-round tight end. Again, with the rookie breathing down his neck, you know, he'll need to bring his A game, but we all know he's capable of being that, like we said, all-round good tight end. Safety blanket, good down the seam, good blocker, but Theo Johnson, do not sort of pass on this guy, because this guy's, you know, we'll push him. It's not like, you know, he hasn't got anyone behind him, so his job's secure. But he's got to go out there and show what he can do, what we know he can do, what we believe he can do. But Bellinger, he put on a lot of heft last season, but we didn't see that helping his blocking, like we talked about. Is he under pressure to stand out this season? What do you think, Dan?
I mean, he's under pressure this season. Don't get me wrong. I think he's under pressure to perform. Is he under pressure to stand out? Do we need a standout tight end, or do we need consistency? It's the same with the offensive line. We're going to talk about later in next week. Do we need just a consistent tight end, or even 2 tight ends to play well in the position, or do we really need someone to stand out? Well, Dan Bellinger, I mean, his first season, he had a good first half of the first season, but then obviously the injury derailed that, and he wasn't the same after this. Last year, obviously, he was second fiddle behind Waller. His stats, they're 38th, tied 47th, tied 34th, so they're not great stats, but didn't expect that behind Darren Waller. Now he's back in as tight end 1. I expect those stats to increase, but at the same time, we've got, like you said, a very, very good talent and potential in someone like Theo Johnson. Let's see how camp goes, and let's see how it goes going into the season, because we might not necessarily need Dan Bellinger to stand out. We just might need him just to be a consistent, good tight end. Plus, look at the receiving core we've got, full of potential weapons. I don't think we really need him to stand out much. Just be consistent, really, in my opinion.
What's your thoughts, Craig?
I agree with what Dan's saying, but I do feel like if he doesn't stand out in his own positional group, then that...
Amongst other tight ends, yeah, fair.
Yeah, he has to stand out in his own positional group, because in a weird way, he's got, as you've both said, Theo Johnson kind of, just behind him. Now, we're getting to Theo a bit later, but he's raw. That's his downside. But you look at the rest of the tight ends on the left there, if you're watching live, and obviously if you're listening, we're going to get through them very shortly. No one else there stands out for me as being a threat to Daniel Bellinger. The only one that does is Theo Johnson. So he needs to stand out in his own room. But Dan's right. He doesn't need to stand out on a team. And I do believe, and this is not a knock on your Kelseys and your Kittles, but I do believe if you're the standout player on your team at tight end, something's drastically wrong with your wide receiver room.
Yeah, I completely back that. I think your wide receivers need to be your standout players, and your tight ends need to be a good complement, almost like a second option, like a check down type option. You really want to go to your wide receivers. And I 100% agree with what you both said. I mean, like, Dan, you're right. He doesn't need to necessarily stand out in the league and be like a top tight end in the league yet. But Craig, you're 100% correct as well when you say he needs to be the head and shoulders above everyone else in that tight end room. He needs to come into padded practice and show that he's quite clearly the top of that depth chart.
So just quickly before we move on, because this was something that Kev didn't get to cover last week, but Steve's kind of brought it up. The same Bellinger who's going to be a surprise cut.
Come on now.
What did you make of the comments by Connor?
I don't know. I mean, he's not usually one for a bit of clickbaiting, is he? He's not usually one for to throw something out. And to be honest, I just can't see it. I mean, first of all, he's on a rookie contract, so he's cheap, very, very cheap. So it makes no sense cutting him at all. I don't know whether he maybe misunderstood the question, or he answered it in a way that someone who won't be number one tight end, for example, maybe he was trying to say that don't think Daniel Bellinger is the number one tight end on this team. Maybe he was coming from that angle. I can't see him being a cut candidate, but are you telling me that he might think that Theo Johnson might pass him on the depth chart in the preseason and a couple of games into the season? Maybe that's what he was trying to say. I'm not 100% sure.
Cool. Sorry, Dan.
No,
you can continue.
That's all right. No problem. No worries. Thank you. But yeah, let's crack on and move on with the next up is Lawrence Cager. Now, he was active for 11 games last season. Who knew? Before a groin injury saw him end up on IR in late December. Sorry, Kev. Didn't make you choke on your drink there.
Ruthless, the Cager. No prisoners tonight, man.
No, exactly. In that time, he caught 4 of the 5 targets that came his way with a touchdown in the Week 10 game against the Cowboys. Unfortunately, he's not really much for a blocker, which probably was a massive contribution to his snap total being halved from the season before. Expectations, let's face it, not really high. He was resigned to be in a sort of... He re-signed... and it was a bit of a head scratcher, really, because last season was so underwhelming. He's not turned into a consistent threat in the passing game. His blocking isn't great. He's had plenty of inadequacies during the blocking game as well, which hurt his chances too. So if the Giants go for a blocking tight end, it's his most likely path to the roster. And that's, the practice squad as well. But if they go in a different direction, could he land on the roster for a final chance? Who knows? But I think Lawrence Cager, I was surprised that he re-signed with the team, and I think we all were as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to not see him on the team come at the end of training camp.
Yep. The less said about Cager, the better.
There we go. Let's talk about our standout prospect in the tight end room in Theo Johnson and Craig Warren.
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't got Shane with us this evening, which is a bit of a shame with us talking about Theo. But we'll let him do a catch up next week to give his thoughts, because he probably will have a lot more to say about him than myself or you guys will. But Johnson kind of had a bit of a mixed 2023, where he didn't really feature as much as he would have liked. But I think that was more a production thing due to the issues around the offense at Penn State, because they just did not produce explosive plays last year. And Johnson is an explosive player, as you know, his RAS score is 9.99. That says everything you need to know about what he's like. So rather than it being like a reflection of his play per se, it was probably more a reflection of where Penn State are at with their quarterback, with their head coach, with their offensive game plan. And that's what the Giants had to do. You know, they drafted him based on raw potential and a projection more than maybe what he showed. But despite those offensive shortcomings, he did find the end zone 7 times, which was tied for second in the FBS. So, you know, there's definitely something there, especially as a red zone threat, which is something we've definitely been missing at the tight end position for a while now. If you look at his stats for last year, now bear in mind, these are, as we say every single time, these are rookie stats. So there are a hell of a lot of players they have to go up against. But 341 receiving yards, which was 45th, 7 touchdowns, as I said, tied second, 10 yards exactly per reception. So good enough for a first down on every catch by the sounds of things, which interestingly is tied 226th in the college football world. 170 yards after catch, 34 was his long, and he had 2 drops. If Johnson can live up to his explosive athletic testing numbers, then the expectation is that he could emerge as a legitimate threat to Daniel Bellinger's tight end 1 spot. However, Brian Dable has already explained that the tight end position is one of the hardest positions to transition from college to NFL, so he will need time to adjust, to learn the nuances of having multiple lineups, because tight ends, you know, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 tight ends on the field. You could have no tight ends on the field, and he'll be sitting on the sideline. He could be blocking. He could be pass blocking. You know, there's so much that he's going to be asked to do. So it might just be a case of allowing him to bed in a little bit. But Kev, could Johnson be the biggest winner of the Darren Waller retirement, or could it put maybe too much pressure on him too early for him to succeed from the outside world?
Short answer is yes. I think definitely. But so some thoughts though. I mean, like I think it's good for him to have, in my opinion, have Bellinger as number 1 starter. So Bellinger comes in as the number 1 starting tight end. I think that's really good for his development. I mean, if he was penciled in to be his starter, I think it would be rough for him. Like you just said, you know, the transition from college to NFL is massive for all players, but like you said, especially for tight ends. So for him to be able to sort of like not have that pressure of, okay, you are the starter, come in and you know, sort of like learn his position, learn what the NFL is all about. It might take him a while to get used to the speed and physicality of the NFL. But, you know, I think we'll see him progress, and I think he'll get better and better throughout padded practices, preseason, and throughout the season. I think proper NFL coaching will be huge for him. And, you know, if we can have some sort of decent offensive line play and a quarterback that throws the ball downfield like Dable's promised, you know, maybe he'll get a few catches, especially in the red zone.
Dan, what do you think? Do you think that the pressure of not having Waller there to learn from could be something that we might miss, or is it better to get reps than it is to get, you know, hyperboles from another player?
I mean, you'd have a lot to learn from Darren Waller, but at the same time, I think he's got a lot to learn anyway. You know, he's a rookie coming into this league. He's going to have experienced veterans around him. Darren Waller would have been a great sort of mentor / tutor, whatever. But he's got other names around him that we're going to go through that have all had experience in this league. So I don't think he will necessarily lose out too much. Could he be? Could he be the sort of the biggest winner outside of the Darren Waller retirement? I think he could be. Early on, if Bellinger isn't performing or isn't quite what we're looking for in terms of, especially like receiving and in the red zone, then what's to say Theo doesn't potentially even jump up ahead of him in the depth chart and become a tight end one, kind of like a rookie Bellinger did in his first season until his unfortunate injury set him back. So there's a lot of potential here for him, and I think he definitely could benefit from Darren Waller retiring a lot more than if he was still around.
Yeah, I also think as well, just a quick note, Daniel Bellinger, I think he's just going into his third season now, and every offseason he's been part of the Tight End University that Kelsey's organized. And he's picked up a lot of sort of like tips and tricks and sort of like, things from these experienced tight ends who've been around for years. So I kind of think, he will bring that back into the tight end room. And although he is still in his rookie contract, but I think, he will be able to help bring Johnson along. And I'm kind of hoping both of them can grow together and be like a really, really good tight end duo.
Yeah, just on that point about tight end, Jack Stoll was also there from the Giants. I remember reading that. So Bellinger and Stoll both made the trip last week to tight end U.
Nice. Tight end U. Sounds like fun. All right, who we got next, Kev? What's your turn next?
We've got Chris Manhertz. Man, he likes to hurt some men. That's a man name, isn't it? Jeez, Chris Manhertz. But right, so speaking of Manhertz, like his contributions might not look as much if you look at the stat sheet, but they are not to be understated. Not only did he not miss a game due to injury, the fourth season in a row, but he's only allowed 5 pressures, 4 hurries, and 1 quarterback hit in the 66 pass blocking snaps he had. He had over 300 total blocking snaps. His 73.1 pass blocking PFF grade was 27th overall amongst tight ends. However, no other tight end above him had more pass blocking snaps. So he is a true blocking tight end. The Giants are likely to have 3 tight ends on the roster. Might go 4, but usually they've kept 3. If they decide that they want a dedicated blocking tight end, he could be the way to go, although he will probably be battling out with Jack Stoll, who Craig just mentioned.
Nice, yeah. He's got a class name, Manhertz.
His experience as well. He's in his 30s. I think he's 32. So he's been around the block a little bit. So he's going to have a bit more of experience about being a veteran in the league.
Yeah, man. We might as well talk about Jack Stoll as his name's been mentioned a couple of times. And like Manhertz, he's predominantly a blocking tight end. He's been used sparingly in the passing game, but he's sort of steadily carved out a few snaps here and there. He tends to be deployed more in the run game rather than the pass game, with 270 run blocking snaps compared to 35 in the passing game. And as mentioned, he's going to be fighting it out with Chris Manhertz for that dedicated sort of blocking tight end role. Manhertz has the edge in experience, but Stoll had the better run block grade last season. So how important do you think it's to have a blocking specialist tight end this season, Kev?
It's huge. I think it's like hugely important, especially with such uncertainty on the O-line position. I like the look of Bellinger being our primary tight end with Johnson as a second option to develop, but that third tight end has to be a great blocker. They need a bit of catching ability, yes, but has to be blocking first. And remember, we don't currently have a fullback on the roster, and also I do believe this year, for the first time in a long time, we actually have a deep back end of the depth chart at wide receiver. So the pass catching, I think we're okay in that situation, with pass catching talent. Hopefully Neighbors will be that, elite player. We've got a couple of good seconds, but we've actually quite deeper down on the depth chart of wide receiver. So for me, blocking tight end is huge to go along with Theo and Dan.
Right?
100,
Agreed?
yeah, 100%. There was one thing that we were shit at last year. It was blocking and trying to stop people from being able to get to our quarterback or open up lanes for our running backs. And if there's one thing that a dedicated blocking tight end can do, it's probably going to be block. I'm going to be honest with you. It's probably going to be block. So, I think when you look at the roster and we've got one more player and then we'll have a look at some projections, etc. But like when you look at the roster and you've got Daniel Bellinger, who kind of is that jack of all trades, master of none, and that's not a knock on Bellinger. That's just saying that he's good at a bit of everything.
Yeah.
As long as his blocking improves this year, obviously. If you go the step down, you've got Theo Johnson, who is going to be an animal in the receiving game. He's raw, and that's what we're probably going to see him used as this year, is predominantly as a receiver, and then just the odd little blocking bit here and there as he kind of picks up those nuances. So then to have somebody who can come in and just predominantly block, like we have missed a blocking tight end in red zone, like. Man alive, is there just anything that we could have done really to help our quarterback and running backs last season with a blocking tight end, and we just didn't have it? Waller can do it, but his hamstring was dodgy. Cager, we've already discussed. Cager can't do it. It's just something he can't do. Bellinger took the step backwards. So I would be personally quite happy to have 3 tight ends on the roster this year and have one of them dedicated to this, because it's not like you have your tight ends do a lot in special teams or anything like that, is it? That's predominantly down to your cornerbacks, your safeties, your linebackers, and your wide receivers. So, I've got no issue with it, and I think I'd actually prefer it.
Yeah, big time. I think it's a key position that we need to on our roster, especially helping that offensive line, especially in those in those formations where you need 2 tight ends on the line. It makes a huge difference to have somebody that can block versus somebody that is okay. And I think in the past we've had too many that have been okay but not great, and they've allowed too much in the way of pressure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like especially if you're going. Sorry, just quick one. If you're going goal line and you want to put 3 tight ends out there with neighbors, so if you have like neighbors, or for example, one of the bigger wide receivers like Hudgens, but you want to have those 3 tight ends on the line, being able to have someone like a Manhertz or Stoll, a big blocking tight end, and then Daniel Bellinger and Theo Johnson, who be able to run routes, having the option of keeping those 3 and running behind them, or keeping one tight end like Manhertz and letting the other 2 run routes, or all 3 running routes. It gives you so much more flexibility in the red zone, because if you haven't got a blocking tight end out there and you've got 3 tight ends, the weakest tight end always gets picked on and gets blown up, and that's usually where the pressure comes from, that we give up a sack or something. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely would like to see it.
And let's face it, we weren't great in the red zone last year.
We weren't great at a lot.
There we go. Very true. Very true. All right, Craig, let's round out the tight ends. Who we got up last?
Tyree Jackson. Jackson was with the Eagles last preseason before getting cut in late August during final roster cutdowns. He was immediately picked up by the Giants, placed on the practice squad. He was called up in weeks 10 and 11 for appearances against the Cowboys and Commanders. Had 18 snaps and recorded no stats at all. An arm injury, so expectations, an arm injury in the third OTA of this offseason has really hampered Jackson's slim chances of getting a look in this season. It's a shame, as he has the size to be a red zone target, but kind of lacks that route discipline that could have been worked on during this time. If he's going to miss OTAs, he's going to miss minicamp, he's probably going to end up missing a lot more. I think the ceiling for him is going to be practice squad, and chances are he'll be fighting it out against Manhertz and Stoll, whichever one of those doesn't make it, and Cager. But if we have a look at the roster breakdown and projections, which is like my personal little love child that I've been working on, and I love doing this. I'll be handing this over to whoever does it. It really is. Who's ready for previous rosters? Because this is always good fun, isn't it?
Go on.
The 2020 tight end room was Evan Engram, Caden Smith, Talilo, and Tomlinson. These are all depth charts from week 1 of that particular season, by the way. So we had 4 tight ends on the roster in 2020.
Interesting.
2021 was Evan Engram, Rudolph, and Caden Smith. 2022, Bellinger and Hudson. Anyone? And then last year, Waller, Bellinger, and Cager. So back to the 3 there. If you look at the current players, Bellinger is here for another 4 seasons, by the look of things. I over the cap have him tied up for the next 4 seasons, which is really confusing because I didn't think he would be. Yeah, it's strange, but who knows? Theo Johnson obviously has 4 years on here. So Chris Manhertz, Lawrence Cager, Jack Stoll, Tyree Jackson all have... Sorry, Manhertz, Cager and Stoll have 1-year contracts. Tyree Jackson's got 2 years. Jackson's got no guarantees. Cager's got no guarantees, so there's no issues there if they get cut. Jack Stoll has $327,000 guaranteed on a $1.055 million contract for a year, and Manhertz has $117,000 guaranteed on a $1.2 million contract. So they're very much of a muchness there. So the interesting thing here is going to be which way they go. I think Bellinger and Johnson are pretty much locks. And then outside of that, it is really going to be kind of what's your flavour. The Giants are focused on 2 specialist blocking tight ends. However, Joe Shane only had 2 tight ends in 2022 and 3 in 2023. And that was only because they traded for Darren Waller, really, let's be honest. Kev, who's your prediction for taking that final spot if we say that the Giants take 3?
At the moment now, I think it's so difficult because we haven't really seen much of the other tight ends play, and but I think I have to go with Chris Manhertz. I think just his veteran leadership, his sort of being around the block, he excels at blocking. I just think it'd be someone to have in the room on game day, and who would be used quite a bit. So I'm going to go with him for now.
Dan, what about you if you had to make the call right now?
I would say Manhertz over Stoll at the moment, but I mean, literally, it's pretty much a coin toss. I think Manhertz edged it just, but like I said, Stoll has a better run blocking grade for last season than Manhertz did. So, pick your poison. Which one do you want to go with? So you never know. Might go with 4.
Yeah,
big camp battle, wouldn't it?
Oh, 100%.
A true camp battle.
So the only thing that I kind of look at when you look at the statistics between Manhertz and Stoll is the fact that Manhertz, I think, was with the Broncos last year, who, as we all know, were not a great football team, much like ourselves. Jack Stoll was the understudy to Dallas Goedert at the Eagles. So you look at his pass blocking and run blocking stats, and you think, well, look at the rest of the accompaniments that he had on that offensive line and at tight end versus what Manhertz likely had. So I think, Kev's right. It's a coin flip right now because of the fact that it's a camp battle. The only thing you could maybe think about Jack Stoll is just the fact that he's a lot younger than Chris Manhertz, and the fact that you could get a bit of longevity there and somebody who can stay with the team for a number of years. But the other way to look at it is Brian Daboll probably needs to do something good this year to save his job, and he might be looking at now rather than then.
Yeah, true. Do you take youth or experience?
I thought you said, would you take you? Probably not, no.
No, I mean, not with your shoulder, no. Not with your shoulder. Yeah, I suppose it comes down to youth, experience. Which one do you want? It's an interesting question that's going to be answered in the next 2 months. So watch this space. Alrighty, let's crack on and move on to our next position. Now, I'm sure Shane's absolutely gutted about having to watch England and not being here with us talking about our next group of players. We're talking offensive line. We're looking at the big men in the middle. Those are the quarterback's hand right up in the gooch. It's the centers. Starting off with last year's second-round draft pick, John Michael Schmitz. It was a tough introduction for him. In 2023, he was graded as statistically the worst center in the NFL by PFF. I mean, considering the fact that he played on one of the worst offensive lines in the league, I'm not really surprised. He allowed the third most pressures on the team with 30 overall in 13 games, but it is hard to blame all of the giant shortcomings on him. The rest of the line was atrocious, like I said, and the carousel of fellow linemen and quarterbacks, coupled with an injury, hampered his development and never really afforded him the consistency that many rookies likely had. So his stats from last season, they allowed 30 pressures, which was tied for 7th in the league, 23 hurries, which was tied for 6th, quarterback hits, he allowed 2, which was tied for 25th, sacks, he allowed 5, which was tied for 5th, and penalties, he had 4 against him, which was tied for 27th in the league as well. Expectations for him, interestingly, the same PFF that graded him as so low have earmarked him as the breakout candidate on the Giants for 2024. So you've got to do a lot to try and please PFF, but then also at the same time, he's going to break out and have a stellar season. Well, we hope so as well. A new set of guards and a new offensive line coach, should I say, and offensive line coach, and there's everything around him seems to be a bit more sort of settled. Hopefully, it'll be a catalyst for him to gain more consistency in his game and really show what he can do. Now, Kev, John Runyon's already said that Schmitz plays and acts like a 5-year vet. Do you think his issues last year would have been negated had he had better play from the guards surrounding him?
Yes. I mean, Dan, you nailed on the head. Like, last year's offensive line play was horrendous. I mean, the whole line was bad apart from Andrew Thomas when he was fit enough to play. Being a rookie in the NFL is so hard as it is, but when you have awful play around you, you can try and he was trying to overcompensate, he's not really concentrating on his own assignments, and then you start losing fundamentals and stuff like that. This is supposed to be a player who comes in and sort of concentrates on what I need to do. But when you've got people flying past you on either side of you because the guards aren't holding up their end of the bargain, it's just, it's so difficult for him. I just want to see some more consistency. He's got Runyon and Luminer either side of him. Just let him concentrate on what he needs to concentrate, his fundamentals, his assignments, and I think you'll see a much, much better season from him this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong for a rookie centre, which, let's be honest, is not the easiest position to play, especially when you're having to snap the ball to the quarterback. Trial by fire is not even the word, is it? Let's be honest. And he's going up in a division that I know that the Commanders halfway through the season decided to shed everyone, but he was in a he was in a division where there's some pretty formidable defensive fronts that he's got to go up against, and even the interior players for like the Cowboys and the Eagles are probably better than quite a lot of the NFL defensive lines. So, he really was thrown in at the deep end with no bloody paddle on either side of him, really. It'll be interesting to know how many guards played last year. I think it was something stupid like 8 or 9. There's nothing you can do when it is a revolving door either side of you in both personnel and actual play. So it's no surprise that he's down there. But if PFF mark him as a breakout candidate, then you've got to say that they project him to be a lot better. And John Runyon and Jermaine Illuminor are massive upgrades on what we've had. I mean, they're probably better upgrades than we've had for 3-4 seasons.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll be talking about them next week, but it just, to be able to have that stable, consistent line either side of you through 16, 17 games is a huge thing. And I mean, like you said, how many guards did we have last year? You know, lost count at one point, I think. And it just almost you don't get that unit, that collective unit playing together, because there's always someone coming in, leaving, someone coming in, leaving. It upsets the rhythm. You know, they play as a unit, they play together as a team, and when the rhythm is upset so much, and you know, injuries to himself as well don't help as well. So, you know, it does do a lot to affect the overall play on the offensive line. And you know, we just had a bad year all round on the O line, really. And that's, you know, I'm not surprised he was ranked as the worst centre in the league, because everything else around him wasn't great. So it is what it is. But I think he's got a second year coming up that he's got a lot of potential and a lot of promise.
Indeed. Another man with a cracking second name here.
Schlottmann.
Austin Schlottmann, who clearly should be playing wide receiver rather than playing centre.
Get out.
Schlottmann signed his second consecutive one-year deal with the Vikings last off-season, and for the second year in a row, he would be called upon to make a handful of starts early in the season due to injuries. During his 247 snaps at centre, he also made 2 at left guard in week 14. And across the whole season, he allowed 5 hurries, 1 quarterback hit, and 1 sack, finishing the season with a 72.3 PFF pass block grade. The expectation, Schlottmann has been a backup during his 5 years in the league and will likely secure that job again, barring sort of any injury to himself or JMS. He also does come with some versatility, which is something that the front office has really valued. You know, Joe Shane, during his time with the Giants, has always been quite big on versatility. And Schlottmann has lined up at right guard during his first 2 years with the Broncos, and then left guard when called upon with the Vikings. So he has a little bit of versatility that the Giants will probably end up potentially having to use. And it's probably one of the reasons that he will stick on the roster, is the fact that he can play those multiple positions, which is really good when you have a limited roster size. Kev, do you want to round us out with another who?
Jimmy Morrissey. You mean you don't know Jimmy? I mean, okay, well, here we go. Jimmy Morrissey, I'm going to tell you about him. Well, it was a quiet season for the third-year player, as he spent the majority of the season on the Texans practice squad. He did see some game time in week 4. However, his 3 snaps against the Steelers were a lot less than the 57 he had the season before. Now, the expectations for Morrissey this year, he was signed to a future contract by the Giants back in late January, and a season on the practice squad beckons, we think.
I mean, looking at his name just reminds me of Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd be very surprised if he isn't on the practice squad. You know, nothing about him apart from what's written in front of me, and that he was on the Texans practice squad and then had some game time in week 4. So there we go, Jimmy Morrissey. Welcome to the Giants. I'm sure you're making a great impact.
He's on the roster and he has a number. That's
he's on the roster. He's got a number and he's getting paid. That's all that matters.
Exactly.
That's all that matters.
Right.
Craig, where's your chart? Let's go.
My chart. So previous rosters. 2020, Gates and Pulley. 2021.
No, Nick Gates, the one that got away.
2021, Nick Gates and Billy Price, if you remember Billy Price.
Yeah, we sent BJ Hill over for him, didn't we?
Good old Bill.
2022, Feliciano and Bredesen. And then 2023, and this is the depth chart for week 1 last year, was JMS and Shane Lemieux was the backup centre early in the season, apparently. So JMS is obviously under contract for another 4 years. His first 2 years are fully guaranteed, so you know he is here for at least another 2 seasons. That should continue, and you know we all hope that he's here for a lot longer than that. You know, there's one thing that we've lacked is some consistency at centre. Schlottmann's got a 2-year contract. There's no guarantees on it, but I think that's pretty much a a tell as to what's going to happen there. And Jimmy Morrissey is on a very, very much a vet minimum deal of 1 year with no guarantees as well. I think this one really is as clean cut as it comes. Schmitz was drafted as the long-term answer at centre. Schlottmann has been a backup in the league for years. Easy peasy. I think easy peasy is literally the best way that you could describe the centre position. So, par Runyon, no other guard has centre experience. So we're talking about that versatility earlier. Runyon is the only other person in our guard and tackle rooms who has centre experience. Does this make the centre position the easiest to predict? Or do you think we still have room for a vet to sneak on the roster after cut downs, Kev?
Nope, cut and dry. JMS starts. Schlottmann's the backup. Happy days. Schlottmann's been there 5 seasons as a backup. He's young, but with experience. So I think it's just nice and let them two crack on. And they're just centre pairing for the season.
Dan?
I mean, you could, unless you wanted to get old Joshua Zudu and make him be bad at another position, you could put in there.
Dan?
I mean, calm down on Joshua Zudu. Poor guy.
Well,
What's he done wrong?
It's not so much him, right? We'll get on to it next week. It's not so much him. It's the team. Like they sort of like played him at guard. Was unsuccessful. They put him at tackle. Absolutely awful there. I mean, he probably has a better chance at guard, but they still continue to stick at him. Tackle. This seems to be our only swing tackle at the moment. So, I mean, yeah. So why not just throw him in centre and let him give up sacks there too?
Why not? I mean, I think it's Schlottmann's position to lose. That
He
backup role
slots in nicely.
He does slot in nicely.
Aren't you glad I'm gone next week?
We just won't have the awful puns, will we?
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, it's his position to lose, really. Schmitz, I'm excited about his sophomore season with the strength we've added on the line around him. I think it could potentially be a more fruitful, successful season for him. And let's not forget, we drafted him in the second round for a reason. It's a lot of draft capital to spend on a centre. He obviously has the talent and has the potential, and the whole way of him snapping the ball issue not really an issue, but the whole sort of rhetoric that was going around last season, in the off season. It obviously didn't come to fruition. It didn't make a difference at all. And hopefully he can have a good second season. And the Giants have made offensive line development look like the most painful task in the world. You're right, Hefe. You're absolutely right. It shouldn't be this hard, should it? You really shouldn't. You have coaches in there for a reason to help these guys with development.
In Priscilla, we trust.
Yeah, I think
trust.
Dan's just hit the nail on the head there. You have coaches to develop your players, but we also had a shit coach last year, which is why we couldn't develop players. And how long has that coach been with us for? Years.
Too long.
There we go.
Far too long.
It should not be a problem.
I'm so glad Shane's back next week for the guard and tackle.
He's going to love it. He's going to love it, isn't he?
That's where we get into it. Guard and tackle. The situation at guard and tackle. Now, if you haven't been able to make this show, people, check next week because that's going to be a doozy.
It's going to be tasty. But yeah, so there you go. JMS and Austin Schlottmann are the two picks for us at centre. Unfortunately, though, that is all we've got time for this evening. We will be back next Tuesday as we finish off Shane's favourite unit, the guards and tackles, like we said. They come under the spotlight, and I'm sure he's going to absolutely love talking about them. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
No, just that, it's really good to be on. I love the comments as well, get the chat to pull up people's comments, have we discussion about it. I mean, I do like this. I find it therapeutic. It's good to find out what players we have, where we think the depth chart is for the Giants. I mean, although we will slag some players off and some positions off, I do think potentially we are in a good-ish position roster-wise. I don't think we need to add too much more. Let's just get some of the problem areas corrected this offseason, and let's get some the position groups that really fueled us over the last few years. Let's just get competent play out of them, and then we'll see where we are as a team.
Yeah, I mean, Neil's just said, great night, lads. A lot better than the football game that's going on. I mean, I've kind of had it on the background down here, and I barely looked at it because it has not been great. So I hope that the entertainment here has been better than that, and it sounds like it has been.
Why is there a tournament on, is there?
Does the Irish not get involved?
No, we'll save it for next time. Called for.
Internal friction.
But no, as Steve said in the comments, Dan, Craig, and Kev greater than Sam Matterface. Go on, Steve.
There we go. So,
who wants to listen to him drone on anyway?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been a good getting back to the state of plays. As Kev rightly said, it's really interesting when you start to take stock of what we've got. And the thing is though we will sign players and players will get released, and a hell of a lot of players will get released, let's be honest. It's always interesting to kind of see where things are, where we could still improve and what might happen. And, we'll cover the new players as they come in, as we always do. It's just really interesting to take stock position by position and just see where we are. And I'm not being sold by the hype. Like last year we got sold by the hype. The year before we got sold by the hype. I'm not going to get excited about this roster of players until they show it on the field. And that's really going to be the proof in the pudding now. The way that the team has played for the last God knows how long. And yes, a couple of seasons ago we made it to the playoffs. But there were good times, but there were also some pretty crap times that season as well. It'd be nice just to have a consistent, well-rounded season. And until they do that, it's difficult to kind of G yourself up too much.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just go off a wee tangent while we're here, while the football's on. The thing is, right, when people talk about, you have to find that quarterback to win it all, right? That's what you need to find. Until you find that player who can win the Super Bowl, then you might as well just keep trying. Do you know what? I would actually kind of like making the playoffs a couple of times in a row. Do you mean maybe not win it all, but I'd actually try, would quite like, playoff game, knockout football game. This, quite regularly, instead of finishing with a top 10 pick every year. Do you know what I mean? And if that means, if Daniel Jones is the quarterback and we just need to surround him with better talent and better coaching, then I'm all for that. I just want to see consistently good football. Yes, I want to win it all, of course. Be crazy not to. But let's just get to a few more playoffs. Be competitive in more seasons.
Yeah, cut out the blowouts. Cut out the we won in the wild card round and we go to the divisional round and we get absolutely decimated. Like close games. If you lose a close game and you're competitive, it's better than watching drivel every week.
Yeah, let's look at other teams in the league. Like team like Buffalo, for instance. They're there or thereabouts every year, and it's almost, they're always sort of going to be in the mix for the playoffs. They're always going to be in the mix for the championship game. So it's like, why can't we be? It sounds bad. Why can't we be more like Buffalo? Just have some competitive, winning football every year. We don't expect much.
And also,
nice to have a few more wins.
How deflating was that first game last season? I know you boys went to it was the Sunday night football. You guys went out and watched it up in Birmingham. Now, how deflating was that for pretty much not the whole season, but it doesn't start the season well. Now, this year, we're on at 6 p.m. on Sunday against the Vikings. It's a very, very, very winnable game. How good would that be to win that game surrounded by other Giants fans having a beer?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Zero expectations, though.
No, of course. But let's just go and be competitive, like we just said. Last year's first game was not competitive in any way, shape, or fashion. This year, details to follow. Meet up with us, have a few beers, watch the game on Sunday, the 8th of September. Book the Mondays off. Let's just be competitive. Go out there, win the game, or show like we But again, going back to the playoffs as well, you want to show like you deserve to be there. And when we got there, we did win the first game, but the second game we got found out.
Yeah, and that meet up on the 8th of September, it will be in Birmingham, FYI. But yeah, just even if we lose the game on a last-second field goal, at least let's be competitive and let's make a game of it. But
just quickly before we go, Kieran put a message in probably about 50 minutes ago, and I've kept it to the end just so we didn't lose the flow of the episode. But it's worth highlighting. If anyone's considering buying Munich tickets on a resale site, it's best to do it so on the US version, as resale prices are a lot less. And that's a fantastic comment from Kieran.
Yeah,
great tip, Kieran.
Anything we can do to obviously stop. I'm not saying that everyone's a tout, but anything we can stop from lining touts' pockets and, lining the pockets of legitimate people who cannot make it, who are selling their tickets on, then, that's a good thing. So, yeah, cheers for that, Kieran. Much appreciated.
100%.
So rather genuine Giants fans be there than other team fans or even Panther fans, Let's try and get it all blue.
Oh, mate, that'd be epic, wouldn't it? It's a road game, but the Giants are the home team in terms of the actual number of fans in the stadium.
I think it might be,
I wouldn't be surprised, like it was in Tottenham. I mean, no, not in Tottenham, sorry. Twickenham against the Rams. Yeah. But yeah, great. Thanks for that tip, Kieran. We'll make sure we pass it along to those that need it. And if anyone else has any other tips about how to get tickets or anything like that, let us know. Let us know on X or on any of our socials, and we'll make sure we'll get the word out. And like I said at the top, there's plenty of other options to be able to get yourself a ticket for the game in Munich. So if you weren't lucky enough to get one today, it's not the end of the road just yet. So keep trying, and there will be plenty more opportunities for you to get one. And obviously, as Craig said as well during this episode, obviously he's got his shoulder surgery coming up in the next few days. Just want to wish you the best of luck, mate. Hope it goes well. And here's hoping for a speedy recovery. And let's get you back on as soon as possible.
Amen to that.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, guys. It's a strange surgery that I don't actually know exactly what the rehab's going to be until after I wake up after surgery. I never had a look in there. So this could be the last time you see me for a couple of weeks. It could be a month or more. I have no idea, but I'm sure the rest of the guys will carry on regardless and keep delivering the great content that we've been putting out there. And I look forward to returning fresh and hopefully able to lift both my arms in the air.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Yeah, we'll carry on flying the flag for sure. And obviously it'd be great to have you back on whenever your recovery's complete. But yeah, hope it goes well, and your recovery goes speedily and successfully as well. And for those that are interested, the England game has just finished. It finished 0-0. Who wanted to watch that rather than watching 90 minutes of this? I mean, we were more entertaining than England were over the last 90 minutes. So there we go. And on that note, as I said at the top, you can check out all of our socials, including TikTok and now Twitch as well, by following the links in the description, and give this episode a big thumbs up. Feel free to share it as well. We enjoy all the love that we get on all of our social channels. Until next week, my thanks as ever go to Kev and to producer Craig for joining me, to you, the viewers and listeners, for tuning in. We are signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.